only Viswanathan. We joined Abhishek Chaudhary. I think we are good to go, isn't it,
Good to
Mikey?
go. Yeah, we can get started.
Okay. Okay. Hey, all. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining this evening. And what are we going to do today? Is some of the security tips when you design the cloud native or interior application and deploy it to any cloud provider. In today's session, we are discussing pretty much regarding the Azure, but these some of these can be applied to any of the cloud provider or your private cloud or public cloud. Okay, so it is like less of the slides and more of hands-on and discussion. So my name is Vishwanath Swamy, and I work at Applied Information Sciences. So the session will be purely hands-on and some of those best practices or security practices which we have to follow when we are developing an application. And there'll be multiple ways to do, and some of the ways which I am doing is might be my personal choice, or that is the only way I know to how to do it. It could be any one of those two. And the focus is more on the concepts, and demos are kept pretty simple. And I'm still a learner. Yes, I am still a learner. So let's go to the slide. What are we going to do today? So this is one of the cloud native application which we deployed to Azure. And you can see that we have the SQL Server Redis cache and Azure Keyboard, Web API, and API management. Yeah, the Blazor WASM and OAuth to get the authentication and application insights. So this is the entire application. So I think someone is on speaker. I'm able to hear my own voice. Please mute yourself. Thank you. So, so this is the application which will be, we'll see that I'm still hearing the background noise. I'm really sorry. Um,
Sachin, can you
can
mute yourself, please? Sachin, and
okay. I think you can mute them.
it
Okay.
didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this is an application insights. So there are a lot of places I punched holes in the system so that it will not work. We will go hunt it and see why it is not working, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So that's one. This is how the application looks. A simple, basic hello world, get all and flush it on the screen. Okay. So Mithun Nair, George Reddy, Vignesh Iyer, Scott Rudy, and Mohammad Azim. These are some of the authors and their titles. It's all I cooked up these names. Okay. So there are a lot of things to be discussed. So please fasten your seatbelt. You're boarding a express train now. Okay, so these are the resources which has been deployed in Azure. Okay, so the first thing is let's go piece by piece and see. I'll take this in order, like a SQL Server, Redis cache, Azure Keyboard, Web API. This is order which we will follow. So I'll keep myself in this slide so that we can discuss step by step. So let's come back to this Azure resources and this is one of the uh, best thing I generally follow. So the naming conventions, how do you create? So this has got everything. I mean, how the naming strategy should be, and they've given a very good naming abbreviations of how should you use, like for API management, APM, and for app service plan. App service plan, you have like a this one plan hyphen like Azure service, app service environment, AAC, everything they have given. I mean, it's better to have this good naming convention instead of using my resource group, their database, his virtual network. So not let's not use those kind of names. Let's use these names so that anyone knows that, I mean, we can identify using the icons, but if someone is going through a documentation and we mentioned APM bookstore dev, that shows that, okay, this is the dev subscription, this is APM, okay, application API management, and this is the app, and this is application insights, key vault, app service plan. This is Redis, this is SQL, this is SQL database. So by seeing the name itself, we'll come to know that what each resources are. Okay. So let's come to this SQL server, and I do have the database on. I just configured that database. So first, let's start with the development. So while we are developing, I have uh, developed this in both .NET 5 as well as in .NET 6 just to see the difference. Is there any difference? I will use the .NET 5 version. So it's always best that whenever we are using deploying or developing this solution at our local, better to use this secrets.json instead of having anything at the app settings or local settings, because the secrets.json that doesn't belong to the source code location, that comes from the C drive. In app data roaming, I can go and open the containing folder, and you can see that the secrets JSON, this is what mostly I use it. So I'll have all these connection strings and everything. So even though it doesn't belong to the location where the source code is there, but it is outside the source code. So this is the safest thing. Even we can safely use the connection strings of dev, prod, or stage, or UART, or any environment, but we are still safe. This is the first security tip. When you please use it. How do you do that? Right mouse click on that API project and click on manage user settings. And the other way to identify that is you can double click on that and you can see that user secret ID. Okay, and how does the API knows that it has to read the information from app settings and user settings? So if you come to this startup.c, the program.cs, and in that program.cs, you see that create default builder, and you can see that that's setting the host environment, the content root path, and it loads all the .NET underscore, and it loads from the command line, whatever we give, app settings, and the next item is user secrets. So it knows that it has to go read it from the app settings as well as from the secrets JSON. The link for the secret JSON is over here. And then it knows, how does it know? The default create default builder, that guy does all these things, like it loads the logger factory and this dependency injection container, and all these things will come from here. So it knows that it has to load the configuration from app settings as well as from the secrets.json. So this is the first step. Okay, now that because it's a demo, I'm just using it from here. I want to try this local API. I just go and hit this. There'll be a lot of problems which we will face it. So let's hunt it down step by step. Okay. So the first thing is I'm going to this local in the Postman. I'm just clicking on send. So it's making a request to the server, but it will not be able to hit it properly. So let's see that. Let it throw an error. Then we'll find out why it is throwing that error, and then we'll start hunting it from there. Okay, what it says is cannot open the SQL server requested by the login, and that's our IP. It shows our IP. How do we know that? What is our IP? So we can come to what is my IP address, and uh, that will give you this IP address. Is this 49 37 152 61? Sorry, 62. So that's what it is displaying over here. Okay, that means I'm not able to communicate to the SQL server. Okay, so let's come back to this. And according to our naming convention, there's a SQL server and there's a SQL database. So let's go to this and click on this Azure SQL Server, uh, firewall and virtual network. So here a couple of things is we are using TLS version 1.2. So that is transport layer security. So it's a secure layer on pretty much the latest version. So the content which is traveling from the server to our local machine is backed up by this TLS version. Okay. And deny public network, we said no. That means this can be accessed from anywhere. So it clearly shows that this IP address is not there. So we should never do this. I'm doing it only for the demo to understand some of the security features, but please never ever punch the firewall hole in the firewall. That might create problem. Okay, so always it should be we should create a virtual network or create this private endpoint and allow only the apps which has been deployed and give access to only those things. Okay, just to showcase that I am enabling this. This is one of the other security stuff. So now that I have enabled it, let me go and click on send the send request. It is giving me the content. So that's the first one. Okay. Now what we will do is we'll go back to the SQL Server dev. It's over here and come to this transparent data encryption. So you can see that the transparent data encryption is also known as encryption at rest. So there are a couple of things at this point of time. You can see this here. You can use your own keys by selecting an existing key or create a new one from the key vault. Okay, so by default, what is happening is the key is being managed by the Microsoft. They will take care of the rotation or the security of that and everything they'll maintain. So we can select a key or we can have the key identifier, which we will see that in few minutes from now. But this is what we can do. We can have our own keys and put it that inside the Azure Keyboard, but better to use the will maintain pretty good security to you better to use the keys which are coming from the Microsoft. Okay, and also we have this security center, but I'll just park it. I'll give you a couple of URLs about this Azure Defender as well as this Azure Security Center. Okay, here is where we can create a private virtual networks and add it to here those endpoints to allow. Okay, and a couple of other things is uh, Azure SQL Always On. Okay, so Azure SQL Always On is this is one of the additional features which we can enable on top of the existing Azure SQL Server Always On. Okay, this is the one Azure SQL Always On. So what happened is right now the security what we saw this the encryption transparent data encryption, that is encryption at rest. That means the moment you insert the data, that encrypts the data and store it. Because we are providing the authentication, we are able to see the content in clear text. Okay, so what if the data is transferring from the server to my local laptop? So during the transport, we are using this TLS, but still on top of that, if you want to encrypt and send the data through the wire, we can switch on this always on. So that will help the content to come from server to client. So we can use this uh, uh, this client. So what will happen is we have to use that always on will be there on the SQL server, and then there will be the C# DLLs which we can use to C# DLLs are there which we can use it to encrypt and decrypt at the client side. Okay, that's one thing, and always encrypted. Okay, this is the one. Okay, so always encrypted, and we need to use the client side library, C# libraries. I used it. That's one point. And apart from this, advanced threat protection for the SQL Server. So SQL Server advanced threat protection is one of the another security feature which we need to enable. So what does this guy do is this guy goes and looks around. There's something like a potential vulnerabilities or a SQL injection or anomalous data access or the query patterns and everything. It checks and it alerts us. So this also better to enable, but for a slight bump up in your price for the SQL server, but we can enable that so that it will be good that if someone is trying to uh, uh, s- get into our database, we can get notified and we can restrict him or do something so that we can protect ourselves. There's no point in doing a damage control. Someone sneaked in, he got all the username, passwords, or whatever the details. It's more pain to do that. Okay, so this we have seen at the server level. Now let's go to the database level, and inside the database also we can see a couple of things over here. And here also you can see that we have the um, transparent data encryption, encrypts the databases. So we can use this one, or you can switch off. I don't see any reason why we should switch off that. And also there are other important things which we can do it, like based on the metrics, we can switch on the alerts and it can send an email or a text message to our mobile. Okay, so these are some of the things which we need to focus or uh, care about when we are dealing with SQL database or any database for this matter of fact. Okay, so like this one is transparent. This one we have seen that, and advanced threat protection we have seen that, and always encrypted also we spoke about that one. Apart from that, there are tons and tons of things are there. At least at a high level, these are few things which we need to consider when we are going with SQL. Okay, so now the next guy in the loop is Azure Keyboard. So let me come to this Azure Keyboard. So this is a Azure Key Vault, so where we can create our key vault and store all the keys or certificates or secrets here. Okay, so what kind of security does this guy give us? The key vault. So if you see that all the keys, the key vaults will be backed up by the keys which maintain from Microsoft. So let's spend 1 minute time to see this one, Azure Key Vault HSM. So this is hardware security model. So when we used to work in ATM applications where we used to get this hardware security model based keys. So to punch in the keys, it generates two 16 digits keys and will be given to two different people. No one knows each other, but the first associate or the engineer will come and he'll key in the first 16 digits, he'll go, and the second one will come and key in his second 16 digits, and that's how it works. So if you see that the key, what is Azure Key Vault managed HSM. So the keys, they have their own keys to protect in the key vault. Microsoft will maintain very good thing, but if we have our own uh, our own keys or our own system of maintaining this one, we can use our own keys there. Okay, that, I mean, based on the company policy, if company doesn't want to use any other keys and they want their own security keys to use it, so they can do. One of those thing is hardware security model HSM, which mostly the pretty much a secure thing. Okay, and that's one thing. And the second point is there are keys, like keys, secrets. Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to discuss about the Redis cache. I'm sorry about that. So we have to discuss about the Redis cache, then we'll come to the key vault. I'm sorry for that. So this Redis keys. Uh, okay, Redis cache, Redis cache, Azure Redis cache. And so Azure Redis cache is the, I mean, any cache is a in memory where you store some of the things which doesn't change frequently. So something which doesn't change frequently, we can store it. So we don't need to go and hit the database. That means uh, uh, like a professors in a college. So how many times in a year a new professor will join, and or how many times in a year a professor is getting a raise or change in his designation? Very rarely, maybe maximum 10 changes in a year for a professor. That's a very rare thing. So when in this scenario, it makes sense to bring all this professor's information and store it in a Redis cache. So instead of going and hitting the SQL every time, we can store this one, and it will be our duty to come back and invalidate this cache when the content is has changed on the database. So in the SQL Server, let's assume we have 10 professors and the 11th professor has joined in the month of October. So it makes sense to invalidate the cache in the Redis cache, because the SQL Server has got 11 professors, but in Redis cache we have 10. Okay, coming back to thing, Redis data persistence will be done only in the premium tier. So we'll come back to that one in a moment. So what will happen is uh, here what will happen is all the things are stored in the memory. So when you're storing some kind of information, we need to ensure that that is in memory. If anyone got access to that one, they can go ahead and read. And that's one thing we need to ensure. So if we come back, we'll come back in a moment about that one. So let me go and show something. Azure Cache for Redis. You can come and click on this create. We're not going to create it, but uh, I'll share it. I'll share it in a moment. Okay. So you can see this one. We have all this pricing tiers, and I also um, gave this one of the slide for this one. You can see this one uh, here. These are the price where you can have the data persistence. So data persistence to hard drive will be done from the premium tier onwards. Okay, from the premium tier onwards. So that's one thing to note, that when we are storing something, we need to ensure that we are not storing anything which is very critical. And okay, that's one important point. And Azure is cache security. Okay, so see this Azure dedicated HSM. This is also again all the keys whatever Microsoft maintains. It maintains is pretty safe. You know, Azure keys. That's the second piece. And now coming back to the thing, how do you configure? So the second point is here will come either the keys or secrets. We are using secrets in our this thing. So if we go into this, we can maintain multiple versions of the keys, and we can come into this one and we can see the secrets. But in real-time production, no one on this face of earth will have an access to the resource group where the Azure Key Vault is there, because Azure Key Vault is the keys of the kingdom. If it gets at the wrong hands, we don't know what kind of damage will happen, but except the senior architect and the DevOps lead or someone, except those people, none of them will have access to these resource group. How does rest of the people they use? They use through the managed identity or the service principal, but no one will have direct access to this one. Okay. And the next thing is what we have to consider is, let's assume for demo, I'm just creating this for demo. I'm writing some junk in that, and I click on create. So that creates this, and I am coming in here. I am angry on the project lead, so I came into this one. Luckily, I have access. I have selected one of the key which is there, secret, and I clicked on delete. Okay, so that goes off the radar now. So now let's come back over here and see that uh, Azure Key Vault Purge Protection. So what does this Purge Protection? It's this two concepts which we have to understand here. One is the soft delete and one is the Purge Protection. So what does the soft delete mean? Soft delete means when we delete, it doesn't gets deleted, but it goes and sits in the bench for the desired number of days. So it's configurable from 7 to 90 calendar days. Okay, that's the soft delete. And what does the purge protection means? So if by default the purge protection is not enabled at this point of time, they might enable any point of time uh, by default. So what does this purge protection means? Right now, because I'm angry on one of the guy in the project and I went and I deleted. I know that my email and everything gets tracked, every activity gets tracked, but still I did it. So what will happen is I can come and manage deleted secrets. I can come and I see this. Okay, it is there. I will go and purge this. I can recover, but I just want to trouble the entire team and I purged it. So now if I come in here, what will happen is no one will get the trace. They can track back my activity. That's a different story, but at least I can do a little bit of damage. I can remove this and do a purge. So when we enable the purge protection, so when we are creating the Azure Keyboard, okay, when we go to this Azure Keyboard, when we are creating it, so by default, you can see this. It disable purge protection. Okay, allow key vault and objects to be purged during the retention period. So here the retention period is 90 days. So if I enable the purge protection, apart from the soft delete is enabled by default. So what will happen is if we enable the purge protection, even though someone deletes an object or the key vault item, it enforces the mandatory retention period. If the company says that anything which got deleted from the key vault should stay for 90 days, that means even if someone goes and deletes it, it will stay in that bench for 90 days. Okay, in that location for 90 days. So that will help anyone who's coming in to go to the secrets and they can go and manage, and it will be here for 90 days or 7 days. It's a range between 7 to 90 days. So I'm pretty much sure that once we delete something, we have the purge protection. So that will save us from a lot of pain. Even even we can come in here, we can see that when this item is deleted, if it's a expected thing, then we can ignore after the retention period that gets vanished automatically. But if not, we still have an option to go ahead and recover that. Okay, that's one thing. And another thing is this by default, the purge protection will not be available because I'm the owner of that. I have enabled this purge here. By default, this will not be enabled. So I cannot purge that one. So this is another security when we have permissions, we should not give the purge protection. Okay. No one will get access to these all places. Everything will happen through the DevOps, the Terraform or ARM template or Bicep or whatever the mechanism through PowerShell, CLI, or any mechanism. But I'm just showing you internals what will happen. Okay. So apart from that, there are something else. Vault key policies are there, and we can have this Azure role-based access also, which but I think this is a decent level of thing. Okay, so now that we have created 4 secrets. Okay, now that we have four secrets, and I've already deployed the API. So let's go and let's start. I'll close this so that we can start working there. So at the first attempt, things will not work. I have spoiled it. So let's fix one by one. And I'm just showing you all these things so that you'll know where to go and hunt it. So the first one is advanced tools, and I have enabled the app service logs. So I've enabled it. So this options will be enabled for 24 hours and automatically those will get disabled. So all these things are enabled. We can come to the log streams where we can see why the application is not working, the API. So I'm here at the API and I just click on that and it says that 500 internal server error. So it throws a lot of these things. In a real time it says this the page cannot be displayed and we need to get into the system to find out why it is not working. Okay, we will definitely do that. So let's come to the kudu console. This is again the keys of the kingdom. We will not get access to this one, but I'm just want to give some internals on this one. We can go to debug and console, and we can come to the log files and come to this event log. This event log is equivalent to event viewer on our local box. So whatever the Windows logs you see that over here, so that's the equivalent of that one. Okay, I'll leave it there. So let's come back to the bottom of this one. So we might get some clues here. So this is also one of the thing where it says that here. So it says that authority must be HTTPS unless disabled for the development settings. So it clearly says that some kind of configuration is missing. At least we'll know that. Okay, it says about the JWT token that clearly says that, oh, okay, something related to the JWT token is being misconfigured. So we came to know that. And other places also, apart from that, you can see this W3C, our Iis logs over this. We can get into this and a lot of you have the detail errors up, and we can come in here and check these details errors also. This is what it shows on the page. Okay, so let's come back over here and I would like to spend one more minute on this to show you something else. If I come to the environment and if I come in here, we can see that audience, auth, audience. So that is pointing to the key vault. So even if you want to come and check that, so that will not be, you will not be able to see that what the clear text value. Rest of the things you are seeing in a clear text value, but we have given the reference to the key vault. So that means the API is referring to the key vault's item. That means technically what is happening over here is the API is going to the key vault and coming in the secrets and this audience or authority, it's all technically one. The current version, it is pointing to this identifier, this big identifier. So you can see that auth 0 underscore underscore audience, it is the key vault. But see here, access to key vault denied. So that means API is not able to. That's what we saw here in the Kudu console where it said that something related to the JWT token. It says that it should be HTTPS or something. So it says that. So we understood that. Okay, so authority, audience, as well as it should there should be two other things for the connection string of the Redis connection string as well as one for the SQL connection string. So the data store settings one should be for the SQL database. So those kind of things, everything is missing, and we identified that. See this here is the SQL Server connection string. So all, so SQL Server, Redis cache, authority, and audience. None of this we are able to access it. So we found that. And one more tip over here is it's not a security tip, but it's a generic tip. So if you see this, you have the multi-level the parent child kind of object. So at that time, what will happen is we should use underscore underscore. This is also use underscore underscore for application configuration in Azure App Service. Okay, there's a documentation, they clearly mentioned it. And what kind of things which we are using it, it depends upon that one. See this, whenever you have the parent child kind of thing, you should always use underscore underscore uh, when you're configuring it in Azure. And another important point here in this configuration app settings configuration perspective is you should know the prefixes. So right now there are two things we can do that. So either you can use it in the connection strings, or you can have your own object like this and put it in a application settings. If you use a connection string, if you use the connection string and you're pointing to SQL Server, MySQL, or different databases, it while accessing it, you need to ensure that this is how the it creates a variable. So SQL Server, it creates SQL const string underscore MySQL, SQL Azure is something like this. So we need to keep a watch on that, what kind of connection string which we are using and how are we accessing it, because this is how it creates when it creates in the when we create something in the configuration. Okay, that's one more tip. And another thing is, if we go and see that how do we access this in the app settings, we saw that we can do the secrets JSON while we are doing the local development. But when we come back to the deployment, we see that everything it's pointing to my local database. I don't have the proper connection strings over here. So how do you tackle that is you will come to this configuration over here, and inside this configuration, you will configure this one. So as I was mentioning, if you're using the connection strings, you need to ensure that you're having the proper you need to ensure that you're accessing it in this proper way. Okay, if it is an Azure function, strictly it will be like this. You will not be able to access it if you do that. And this is the one which is here, and here it shows that red mark. Okay, it's not able to access any of those things. So what has gone wrong? So here you can see this service principle is there. So one of the article which I pulled up is this one, whether to use the service principle or Azure identity. This is one of the good article. You can see this service principle versus the managed identity. So service principle is it depends upon our responsibility that we need to maintain or refresh this, and everything is on our responsibility. So you have this username, password, tenant ID, and password, and you have to inject this inside the source code. There is a bright chance that this can be stolen or whatever it is. We have to maintain. That's an extra pain. And the suggested way nowadays is to go through with this managed identity. Okay, so the managed identity comes in two formats. One is the system identity and the user assigned managed identity. So the system assigned is the moment you create it. I mean, this entire managed identity will be taken care by the Microsoft, but system identities, I have created a system identity here. If I delete this API, then this identity will also be gone. I don't need to do anything. Simply, it just goes off the radar. I just copied this. Now come back to the key vault. Um, After this also it might not work, but let's see that. Okay, I click on add access and select the service principal. And I've selected it and clicked on select. And I'm giving only the get and list. I don't need to give the list, but just I'm giving, I just click on add. So I said save. So now what is happening is we are establishing a connectivity between the API and the keyword. Now API should be able to read it. So what we will do is we'll come back to this one. We'll do a stop and we'll do a start. And we'll do start on this one and come back to uh, the configuration and let's check. Let's check this. See, those things were red. Now these keywords has been turned into green. So now let's assume that you can say that, hey, Swamy, what if anyone has got access to this web API? They'll be able to see the connection string. Now can come and see this. What is that? It says that Microsoft Key Vault, and this is the key which we have seen, that identifier. It just points to that key vault identifier. That means until unless you have access to this one, you will not know what is that. And that too, it happens through the managed identity. Okay, it happens through the managed identity. So it's a level of security on top of that. So let's give this a shot now. It might work or it might not, but we will hunt this down further. If it's not working, it might lose the token. Let's see that. It is doing something. I think it should not work. I have planted one more issue. I have a glass of water real quick. Oh, it's taking this much time means it should not work. Oh, okay. Something, I think I configured it, but I don't know. Technically, it shouldn't work, but it is working. I'll show you what did I plant it. If I come to the SQL and go to this show firewall. So allow Azure services and resources to access this tier. I switched it on and I switched it off. But when I switched it off, it's not enabling, but technically it should be always, um, if needed, you can open it, but it's like you're opening it for the while. So anyone publicly, they can come and access through Azure connections to this IP specified, this one. Anyone allow services and resources to access this one. Okay. And one more thing to come and watch here is if we can do a tighter configuration, at least we'll know that outbound IPs. So these are the outbound IPs of this one. If needed, we can have a virtual network and give access, but technically this shouldn't work, but I don't know, it was working. So that's the second thing which I planted, but luckily it is working. That's fine. Let's go and see what else. We spoke about this, we spoke about this, we spoke about this, and this one also we spoke about it. Okay, now let's come back to the APIM. So that is application API management. So let me come in over here, and this itself is a very big thing. Application management. Let's go and see this one. API more here, and here is the API, and I have this API over here. And if you want to test it, any of the endpoint, how do you do that? You can click on Add API, so you can create a blank or a Open API, WADL or a WSDL. Old, we used to work in 2003 to 2008 in this ASMX web service. You can use Logic App and Azure Function and App Service. You can click on Browse, all those things which are available, it will show, and we can use that. And coming back to the security perspective, what all the things we have over here. Let me go and show you a couple of things which I already configured. So I configured the JWT token validation and cross origin things here. So right now, if I come in over here and go to this APIM, we can do some test of this, whether the connectivity between the APIM and the API management and the web API, how does the connectivity looks before giving it to the external world. So I can come in and add API/books, and I click on that. select, it says that unauthorized because I didn't give the JWT token. So I have copied this just to test it. Come in here, authorization, add this, and now send this. Now it's giving me all this information. So now that I know that how the endpoint should look, the endpoint should look like this, and this authorization token that gets passed to this one, and there's a APM subscription key. So I can come into this APM and click on send. So now what is happening is the first level of defense is API management, then it goes to the API. So technically what will happen is previously people used to write the API gateways. So you can see that API gateways. Okay, so we used to work in API gateways. There's the one here. Can see a couple of images. I'll show a few images in this one. So this is the API gateway thing. So what will happen is you'll have the REST endpoints. This will be on the backend servers, and this is coming from the DMZ from the internet. So none of those people will know the endpoints. What is the endpoints which has been exposed? So they write the API gateway. So that will hide these backend services, middle tiers from the front end. So all they know is the contract between API gateway and the front end. They pass this information. This guy does the messaging, validate the token, and we can have the whitelisting whitelisting this IP ranges from where we're expecting the call, and then it passes to the backend. So none of these backend URLs will expose to the world, only this one, because anything coming, the traffic coming from the DMZ goes to the API gateway. This guy does the messaging and send it. So if technically this is what we did in one of the project, we had this middle tiers at the backends in the service web cluster backend cluster, and we used to write API gateway for those and put it in a front end cluster of the service fabric cluster. So this URLs will be given, and we have the JWT validation and everything over here. So these will get validated. Now we used to write some piece of code we used to maintain. Now coming back to the API management. Now we don't need to write a single line of code. Now what else do we have? Let's go and see that. Let me go to the design and see we have a lot of policies. I think I don't have that much time to show, but let me quickly explain you. So we can do the filtering. So we can add the whitelisting or whitelisting is the best thing to do. Blocked IPs is what you don't know how many things you will block as and when you can go and hit it from another IP. So whitelisting is a better thing instead of the blacklisting. So that's the safest approach. I'm telling that I'm going to allow only Vignesh's IP. I don't allow Maithili's IP, something like that. But if I say that I don't allow Maithili's IP, I blocked it. So Sachin can come and he can hit. So if I start doing the blacklisting, someone else can come and hit it. So it's better that I do a whitelist. I say that I'm going to allow only Vignesh IP. That's one point. And another point of security is we have the rate limit. So this one, limit call rate. That means what will happen is I'm saying that number of calls. Suppose e-commerce transaction or you're booking a flight ticket. So how many seconds it will take for you to complete all this transaction? So how many calls can happen from this client? So if you're booking, uh, if you're placing an order in Amazon, you want to place one book. So you will select the book and you will say the payment method and you do all these things. So let's assume in 30 seconds, there might be 10 calls or 20 calls. So within the 30 seconds, if it is 3,000 calls, it doesn't make sense. So based on the realistic scenario, we need to find out that how many calls we should allow and what is the renewal period. And the key, do you want to on the IP address on an API subscription, better to punch it at the IP address level so that you will know that if someone is trying to do a DDoS or those kind of things, we'll come to know that. So that's the I mean, this is only bits and pieces I'm just talking about, but there are a lot of other things out there. And if someone is trying to download, we have 10 minutes.
Yeah, Vishwanath. Yeah.
Maitri?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Time
I'm
checking.
watching. I'm seeing this side means I'm watching my watch. I have the timer on. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so another thing is we can do the quota. So here what will happen is the number of bytes which we want to, the bandwidth or calls, and if I say this by this one, you can see that the bandwidth, how much bandwidth if someone is trying to download, what is the realistic thing. So I can have this because I'm selling this to Maitli and Sachin, and Maitli is paying higher price. She said that I want 10,000 bytes in a day, and Sachin says that I'll download only 2,000 bytes. I don't buy do more. So at that time, I know that okay, the Sachin subscription, API subscription, I should limit only 2000 bytes. I should not allow anything more than that. A lot of security features are there here also, but at least the base minimum what we use is the uh, CORS, CORS one, we use that, and the JWT token validation. We'll come back to this JWT token in a moment. So we are done with 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So whitelist, and this endpoints will not be exposed to the external world until this the team. Uh, Everything will get backed by the API management. So there'll not be any interaction, or people shouldn't know this. There's no need for them to know about this one. All they should know is the API endpoint, what the endpoint should be, and what should be the token. We should be little careful. What if someone knows this and they want to bypass this API management and come and hit it? So better to have an extra. There are multiple ways to handle that. So one of the thing is we can have this JWT token validation again here for the second time. I validate here and again I validate here. And another security thing is I can have some keys which can be passed from the API management. That means if I come in over here and I can have the set address. I can set policy to add, remove, and change headers that are passed to the backend. So I can do one of the way is this. I can add some kind of secrets, the client ID, client secrets, or something like that, and which I can go validate there. Apart from the JWT, I can say that okay, if this header is coming, that's what is the valid one. And again, this is known only to the team who are incorporating these two, API management and the web API. So that's one thing. So another thing is the application. Before we going to this one, I want to switch quickly. Okay, let's configure this, then we can go back. And I'm using auth0 here. So this is an application, and I have put in those URLs, allowed callback URLs and allow logout URLs. And let me see that. Are we going to, let me log out and I do a login. So that checks, oops, it's not this. Let me come here, and this is the web app. And come on, come on, come on. I will grab this and paste it over here. This guy is loading, and I'm saying that login. So that throws this dialog, and demo user 1, 2, 3. And I do a sign in. So that guy will give me the token. So there are a couple of things we can discuss over here. Let me make it real quick. Go to the application, and here there are two things here. You have the access token and the ID token, jwt.io. So let me copy value and let me place the ID token. So in this ID token, it says that who is the issuer, what is the subject, and all the audience who can use it. And it gives the profile ID and a lot of things it exposes. So this is again the keys of the kingdom. So The ID token should always be used at the front end. Never exchange this with the API or the middle tier because they don't need to know all these things. All they need to know is, am I a legitimate guy or not? So we have to do exchange of this ID token. So ID token is, it's a proof that I'm an authenticated guy. You can see that I don't have all those things. It says, okay, did I do a reverse? Okay, I'm sorry. That was an access. That was an access token. This is an ID token. I pasted it reverse. Apologize for that. So ID token. This gives the. I was telling, isn't it? It gives the avatar and all those things, and it gives lot more information. So always use the uh, access token. So this is one of the good article. You can see that ID token and the access token. So this is one of the good article you can go and watch on that one. And there was one other article here also you can. Okay, this is another thing. Nowadays people are using this reference token. So that means they don't even pass this ID token or access token here. So they just pass a GUID or an identifier. They send it to the client, and the server side they maintain all these tokens because that has to be further passed. So the client will exchange with this access token. This is a thing which I'm seeing recently people are using this one. We are also using in one of the project. Okay, that's the thing. And let's spend a couple of minutes on the application insights, which is very
Do you want to take any
much.
last 2 minutes questions, Vishwanath? Do you want to wrap up
Oh,
and take a questions?
oh, okay,
Just we have two
okay.
more minutes.
Sure, sure. I just want to show this application map. Yeah, let's do that. Um, uh, yeah, sure. If we don't have any questions, I'll come back and quickly show this. At least this live metrics I just want to show. Like if I don't pass
Okay.
this authentication and I'm hitting this, well, the live metrics, it shows that the number of failure rates are more. So when we see this, it is better that we need to start alerting the administrators or the application owners on this one. Okay, so let me stop sharing so that we can take few queries. Yes, please. Maithili,
Yeah, I
hello.
don't see any questions in the chat actually. Yeah, Vignesh.
Oh,
Hello.
you're able to hear. Yeah, you're able to hear me.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions?
Folks, any queries? Okay, I think I will give the source code. I'm more of a hands-on guy and less of a PPT guy. I love this my repository, Vishy Pylor. I will give this in the chat. And I planned a lot, but we didn't have time. So I am. This is the application for today's thing which we discussed, and its entire thing is coded. So I just deployed from this one. So please feel free to uh, grab it and give that a shot. Sometimes whenever you're free and you can post queries, um, I'll see how best I can address it. Cool. Anything else, folks, before we call it? Abhishek Chaudhary. I have my friend. I don't know whether he's the same Abhishek Chaudhary. Okay. Vignesh? Maithili.
Yeah, I don't think so. Anybody have any questions, Vishwanath? Yep. We can
Okay.
close this.
I'm a little scared. When questions. Okay, at least I was expecting
Like if you
one
have
or
any questions, put in the chat. We can come back to on that. If you don't have anything now, even you can ping it in the chat. Yeah, channel.
mm, yeah,
And it's a
okay.
great session, Vishwanath. Like it's complete hands-on session. It was like a great thing. You went through the concept and you just walk us with that. It was a wonderful session. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Oh, all my sessions I never prepare PPT, and I prepared the PPT because of Vignesh. 2 3 emails he spoke about the PPT, and so at least I need to put something, and I created those 2 slides. In all my sessions, I never come with the PPT. It's like we'll open a Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code, start with an empty project, and start adding the code, and by the end of 1 hour or 1.5 hours, we'll have the complete a mini project working up and running. So all